left open and starts to miss his family, but since his parents were apparently originally from this world, he thinks he might be able to find some information about what their life was like in this world. Meanwhile, in a nearby forest, a dwarf is running for his life as he's chased down by a giant spider monster. Makoto walks around the demiplane and runs into some of the orcs who seem to be having trouble with a huge tree. They want to cut it down so they can build Makoto a house befitting the lord of the land, but it is too hard for them to cut through with their axes. Makoto is happy to lend a hand and uses his kai to strengthen himself, allowing him to cut through the tree and pick it up with ease. He's also able to heal wounds without having to expend any mana at all, so he's greatly appreciative to Tsukuyomi for granting him such a powerful skill. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he can heal his own wounds, but he thinks it won't be an issue as long as he doesn't get hurt. Moments later, Shin returns to the demiplane with the dwarf after finding him wounded in the forest. She ran into an old enemy of hers while she was out, and after smelling the blood from Makoto's injured hand, it breaks its way into the demiplane to attack. But Shin decides to stay out of it and let Makoto handle it instead. It's a spider monster plagued with the curse of unending hunger, so it will eat literally anything it can get its legs on. Since it's a spider, Makoto starts his attack with the fire element to sever one of its legs, but its regeneration is powerful enough that it recovers almost instantly and continues attacking. Makoto is able to damage it, but if it keeps healing itself, he thinks the fight will never end. He continues launching fire spears, but he ends up getting caught off guard and stabbed through the gut by the spider's leg, but it just makes him angrier. He unleashes his full power and begins firing repeated fire blasts with no delay in between, following it up with an insanely destructive water arrow. After his display of power, he passes out from exhaustion, but the spider is still able to regenerate and it grabs him once more. However, it seems to have taken a liking to him after he gave her such a fulfilling battle, and Shin suggests that she become one of Makoto's servants as well by forming a contract with him, so by the time Makoto wakes up, there's another girl by his side. Makoto wonders who she is, so she explains that she's the spider that he just fought with. She now assumes a human form because of the contract established with Makoto while he was unconscious. Makoto is shocked by this because he didn't think it was possible to form a contract without the consent of both parties. Shin walks in, and Makoto immediately confronts her on forming a contract for him without his consent, but she replies saying that it was better than a giant spider following him the entire time. The dwarf they saved introduces himself as Biren. He thanks Makoto for driving away the spider that has terrorized his village for such a long time, and he also requests that he and his people permanently live in Shin's demiplane. Makoto almost immediately agrees to this, but Shin steps in and states that Biren and his people can move in, but in return, they would have to satisfy a few conditions of theirs, like providing them with weapons, and also acknowledging Makoto as the lord of the land. Biren isn't sure, but she gives him 2 of her dragon scales to help convince his people. The next day, Makoto walks around, trying to trace his parents' path and find human settlements, but Shin then appears and informs him that there is a serious matter which requires his immediate attention. He's back at the hut, where Shin states that she and the spider girl need new names because the citizens of the demiplane didn't know what to call them. Makoto gets upset because he was called back for something so trivial, but Shin and the spider girl still insist on the new names, so Makoto gives Shin the name Tomo, which was the name of the strongest female samurai, and the spider girl is given the name Mio. The next day, a gathering of all citizens of the demiplane has been arranged, and Makoto is surprised at all the new species which have populated the area. Tomo and Mio introduce themselves with their new names, and also mentions that Makoto should be addressed as either their master or lord. Makoto thinks it's ridiculous, but Tomo and Mio insist, so he ends up settling on being called the young master. Biren introduces Makoto to his village chief named Eld, but he mentions how Makoto has the looks far from that of a typical human. He then asks him if he was given a mission by the goddess, but Makoto is offended by this question, and states that he would never accept a mission from her, especially after she roasted him and dropped him on the edge of the world. Eld is relieved to hear this, because the opinions of his people often differ from that of the goddess. Tomo steps in and introduces a species known as the Mist Lizards, who are her loyal followers equipped with both air and water attributes. Mio then introduces her own loyal followers to Makoto, known as the Alki. whose long-term hunger has now been satisfied ever since they received some of Makoto's blood and mana. Makoto gives a brief speech to the citizens and immediately heads out in search of the village he had spotted earlier. He walks for a while and observes a human girl, but she's immediately frightened and runs away the moment she sees him. He continues towards the village, wondering why she ran away, and he's greeted by a horde of villagers, who all point their weapons at him. The people of the village speak in a language which Makoto doesn't understand, and they start to attack him, so he gets driven away. He then realizes that he couldn't understand the language because the goddess gave him the ability to speak every language besides human. Makoto goes back to the hut, upset that he couldn't understand the other humans. He reasons that people wouldn't just go around attacking others just because they can't communicate, so he assumes that he was attacked because he's ugly. But Tomo tells him it's actually because of the large amount of mana he exudes, mentioning that they would have seen him as several demon kings. Emma mentions that an easy fix for this is for Makoto to suppress his mana by imagining a lid on it, so he tries doing this, but there is only a slight decrease in mana. Makoto refuses to give up, so he vows to learn the common speech and also figure out how to suppress his mana. A magic expert named Rugu brings him a ring that can suppress his mana, but when he puts it on, it's immediately overloaded and destroyed. Makoto practices his common speech with Mio, but doesn't seem to be getting the hang of it, but he realizes that he can use his magic to write out a translation of whatever he thinks into common speech. Rugu arrives with a new magic ring, and it successfully absorbs Makoto's mana this time, but Rugu warns him that the ring changes colors from white to red when it reaches its capacity. Makoto returns to the village in a carriage, while also dressed in a cloak and mask, with the alias of being a wealthy merchant's son, and he's able to get through. He notices that everyone in the village is good-looking, which makes him upset since he's the only ugly person. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild, where they are greeted by the receptionist, but she finds Makoto's appearance suspicious, so Mio and Tomo state that he's being forced to wear that mask and also can't speak because of a curse. The receptionist explains that each adventurer starts at rank E, and they can rank up by completing quests. Mio and Tomo are given measuring scrolls to determine their level, and everyone is shocked to see that Tomo is level 1320, while Mio is level 1500. But Tomo is upset that Mio is higher level than her, and she demands that they are re-evaluated. Meanwhile, Makoto's level is evaluated, and he's embarrassed to see that he's still at level 1. They ask for a room for the night, so the innkeeper tells them it will cost 6 gold coins. They find the price absurd, so after a little intimidation from Tomo, the receptionist agrees to only charge them 2 gold. Later that night, Makoto and Mio take a walk through the village, when they suddenly bump into a girl who appears to be in distress. Makoto thinks it's suspicious that